Inside the Capitol during the January 6th attack. Video footage reviewed by CNN shows a close ally of a sitting member of Congress in the pro-Trump mob that stormed the building. Anthony Aguero, a conservative live streamer and associate and close ally of Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, is seen here. He's highlighted in this video. Greene is no stranger to conspiracy theories, helped push Donald Trump's lie of a stolen election and massive voter fraud, as we well know. But what we're looking at is the first video confirmation that her close ally was inside the Capitol that very day. Just yesterday, House lawmakers focused in on the role of domestic extremism in the United States right now. I want to play for you what Chairwoman Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin said.
The single greatest threat to our country right now is the threat of domestic terrorism and the tensions and polarization between us.
The Congresswoman joining me now. Thanks so much for being here. The single greatest threat to our security right now. The FBI director really agrees with you. He has made this clear about domestic extremism as well. And the question is a big one, which is what can be done about it right now?
Sure. Well, first of all, I mean, the most important thing is we need to be resourced to tackle the threat. You know, and I'm someone who was a CIA officer and Pentagon official that basically decided to go into national security because of 9/11. And we did the same process after 9/11. Were we resourced to deal with a foreign terrorism threat? Did we have enough analysts, officers, money, you know, the whole thing? Law, did we have the right law on the books? And I think that's a version of what's going on right now. And it's very, very clear that across the government, the federal government, there's just not that same focus on domestic terrorism. For obvious reasons, right? Civil liberties, civil rights, we have to be very, very careful. People have a right to freedom of speech. But I think one of the things that we can do is A, make sure we're resourced, and then B, hold people accountable. Actually use the law on the books to charge people with terrorism-related charges, with anti-militia related charges. That hasn't been the case that often, and we talked yesterday about how to increase that given the level of threat.
Can you get this right? You talked about a lot of, what was done post 9/11, right? Can you get this right without a 9/11 style commission? I honestly haven't heard anything about that anymore.
Yeah, one of the things I'm most frustrated about right now, I'll be honest, is that we have not been able to come to agreement on the scope of a 9/11 style commission. We all know we need to have it. We all know we need to understand what happened that day, the failures, what led to that horrible event. And I will tell you, I'm frustrated with both Democratic and Republican leaders who can't see our way through this to say this is what the country needs.
What's holding it up? Is it just sadly just annoying politics of? I mean, is it just like the makeup of how many Democrats and Republicans are going to be on this thing?
So my understanding, and I'm not in the room for these negotiations, is it's two things. It's one that Speaker Pelosi has sought a larger number of Democrats and Republicans. And number two, that the Republicans on the other side are asking that the report look at not just what happened that day, but groups like Antifa and folks who, frankly, no intelligence agency say had anything to do with the attack on the Capitol. So it's both scope and numbers. And I think the 9/11 Commission should just be our guide. Equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans, but responsible individuals who believe in the facts of the case, and you look at what led up to it and not extraneous groups that weren't related to that day.
I have to say that is entirely reasonable. And again, why people are so frustrated with Congress all the time. Because if you want to get it right, and you should, because people tried to attack all of you on that day, learn from it and move on. This is one of those things that makes people's blood boil. At the same time, I also have to ask you about KFile's reporting off the top. That just your reaction to hearing that a close ally of a sitting member of Congress, yes, a close member of Congress who gravitates towards conspiracy, loves conspiracy theories and has pushed conspiracy theories, no question. But the fact that a close ally of a sitting member of Congress was among the people rioting on Capitol Hill, and the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene has not responded, has not stood up to talk about this.
Yeah, I'll be really honest. This is a law enforcement matter. This is not, I mean, we can talk about it and we can go back and forth in the media, but frankly, if allies of members of Congress were involved in that attack, and then God forbid, if they were brought on tours, if they performed surveillance, if they engaged in those things, that is a law enforcement matter. And I know that the the Attorney General of the District of Columbia is looking at that right now.
Gives me chills when you think about the fact that they might be giving them tours. It still does, even though we've been talking about it now for months. Can I change directions with you? Because voting rights are under attack across the country. And we just are seeing now that Michigan is now joining this national push, Republicans in Michigan, to restrict voter access. Republican lawmakers, they have just filed 40 bills yesterday in the state Senate. And Republicans say it's about voter integrity and the same things that we've heard from Republicans in other key states that, Democrats made big gains in 2020. What do you call this effort that's happening in your state?
I mean, I think what's going on across the country, and now Michigan, unfortunately, is this kind of cut and paste from states that are attempting to restrict access to voting. And the bills are very, very similar. This is not creative thinking on behalf of the Michigan Republicans. This is cutting and pasting from what other states are doing. I think for me, when I look at these bills, people have lost their way. If their feeling about how to win and how important it is to win for their side involves making it harder to vote for people, they have lost their way as a group, as a lawmaker. And luckily, we have our governor here, who I'm sure would veto any bills that pass through the legislature. But I do think, based on my background, you sort of hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And if these laws are being enacted in parts of the country, and disenfranchising people, and they survive through the court system, we need to make sure that there's voter education and voter registration plans. I literally think of like Freedom Summer, from the 60s, where young people went to these communities to educate voters and make sure that they could still access the vote. I think we're going to need to plan on that, on the hope, the unfortunate possibility that some of these laws pass.
Hope for the best, plan for the worst. There's your mantra for the state of American politics right now. Congresswoman, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Coming up for us, lies and disinformation that were allowed to spread like wildfire on social media helped